Hello, and welcome to the first of hopefully many development diaries for my game, titled Bishop Chapter. Despite the title card in front of you, it's not actually about chess. It's not a board game either. I'm going to be building it using my fairly limited knowledge of Unreal Engine 4, with the helpful aid of some tutorials on YouTube. I've worked on a few other games in the past, mostly as part of a team. I spent a lot of time working on UI design. I learned how to code it into Unreal using the blueprint system to get the effects I wanted. The only game I've actually made entirely by myself was a 2D side-scrolling platformer, which I did during the pandemic last year. And like that project, this project is also for university coursework, but it's the final project of the entire course. So there's a lot riding on it. When I was working on the side scroller, I did come across quite a lot of hurdles. I was using a 2D paper sprite system, I think it was called. It's super experimental. Even the guys in the tutorials for it were saying as such. So it's not fully fleshed out yet, and as a result, there were a lot of issues. But that is something I discovered a bit too late into the project. However, I did manage to scrape it together into something sort of halfway decent. For a first game at least anyway. There's actually a ton more support for learning games in 3D than in 2D, so here's hoping this one actually goes off without too much of a hitch. So for the main idea, I know it's kind of cryptic based off just the title and the image of the bishop chess piece, but it's a puzzle game. The idea is that you control a first-person camera. I want to implement a sort of character choice system at the start, but if I have enough time, and you basically navigate a small-ish map. You start off aimless, but the idea is to escape the map to win the game. I quite like the idea of there being limited to no user interface or HUD at all, because I want the environmental puzzles and the mechanics to act as the teachers. I find the too many puzzle games these days kind of hold the player's hand a bit too much and almost kind of throw the solution at you. And I want to encourage some higher thinking on the player's part with my game, and I think that in itself is going to be quite a challenge. I played games like Myst and Riven with my grandfather when I was little. We'd sort of work through them together. I didn't really understand what was going on most of the time, but he had a lot of patience for me. And yeah, I guess those games had more of a profound impact on me than I thought. I definitely loved them and still do, but I forgot how enjoyable it really was to study the environment. I remember my granddad having a notepad for each game, and on the pages he'd noted down anything he found interesting in the game, so like number sequences, hidden symbols. I remember in Riven there was stones and things you could find just by sort of looking down, and they'd have a symbol, and that symbol would come into play, you know, even towards the end of the game. So it would help to note it down because there was no reference for things that you found like that apart from notes you took in the real world. I remember he even drew a map to get around. There was I think it was in Riven again, there was a rail system, and it was in the dark, and there was always a left, a right turning, or a straight on, and it was sort of like a maze, and each junction would look identical, and to get around between certain parts you'd have to memorize the way through. So yeah, he drew like a rail map. I remember that was quite fun. And while I don't really want to force players to keep notebooks for my game, I do want to encourage kind of like closer scrutiny when it comes to details in the environment, things that might be overlooked by sort of more casual players at first, you know. So there's actually a dual purpose to this project. Oh, here we go. So outside of my studies, I'm a comic artist and just a general kind of digital illustrator, and I'm currently juggling several comic series that I'm hoping to knuckle down and take more seriously in the new year. I find that actually when I procrastinate from uni work, which we all do, the comics are actually what I work on in that time. And I vaguely remember some quotes from someone about finding a way to do what you do when you procrastinate, but for a living, because it sort of indicates it's the thing you're passionate about. So I'm not going to lie, this project has been a struggle to sit down and work on since everything has sort of resumed post-lockdown kind of life. I work part-time as well. I've got a lot of sort of activities going on now. I'm in 2 bands. It's a whole thing. And aside from all that as well, the course leadership has seen a bit of shuffling, and I'm not alone in saying that I feel really sort of disengaged and generally unmotivated at the moment, and that's nobody's fault. But regardless, I do need to find a way to get passionate about this project quick, so I can actually produce something that I'm proud of at the end, rather than just something that'll coast me through a pass mark. I want it to be something that'll look great in my portfolio, and something that'll even teach me some new stuff about games, because that was the entire reason I started studying a master's course in game development. So I was in the shower one day, and the idea struck me to adapt my project and make it fit into my comics. So taking the thing I was passionate about and doing when I was procrastinating, but then winding that around and making my uni game project fit that. Luckily, I was already working on a comic that had some interesting environmental aesthetic stuff going on. That's kind of my jam. So go back to the dual purpose thing. This is going to be like a sort of 2 birds 1 stone almost. I'm taking an environment straight from one of my comics, and I'm going to build it in 3D, and then I'm going to allow players to run around in it and solve puzzles. And I had this idea as well, as a reward for people solving puzzles. I was thinking of adding in like a comic collecting mechanic. I thought if you think back to the first game that comes to mind is the old PlayStation 1 Spider-Man, where you could actually find comics and unlock them to view in the menu. They were covers, I think. I do vaguely remember some games having pages that you could read, but I think they are mostly covers, iconic comic covers. And I was thinking of implementing a similar system into this game and using it as a sort of way to release a comic through a game for people who wanted to see it early. I don't know. It's something I'm playing around with. It's kind of an afterthought for now, but I'll talk about that in the future. So as part of the process of making this game, I'm going to be talking about some visual research I've undertaken and showing some of that to you. And I'll also be producing some digital concept art before modeling some of the elements that'll give my environment its own sort of sense of identity. I'll talk about that in a bit. And I have some artwork of the map already online over on the Instagram, which I will link down below in the description, unless you're already watching on Instagram, in which case don't worry. And then in one of my next videos, I'll show off the white box of the level as it stands so far. I've got some stuff to work with. I also want to show some visual development and link it to sort of uniform color palettes, sort of to make it really pop on the map. So be sure to subscribe and keep an eye out for videos in the coming weeks. So in terms of the theme, the visuals, I've settled on blending 3 quite distinct and unique visual themes. And the idea is that they will sort of bleed into each other in the map. Maybe. So the first theme is Ancient Egypt, which I absolutely love the aesthetics of. So I was thinking the outer walls of the map could be stone, and we'll have cool sort of Egyptian hieroglyphs and patterns on them. There's also going to be maybe an underground part of the map as well, where I can put things like pillars and statues, also inspired by ancient Egypt. I love the visuals of Thebes and Karnak and general temples like that. Sort of like towering, overbearing stone temples, pillars. And I think this theme very much ties in with the characters who will inhabit this map in the comics as well. Now the second theme, are you ready for this? American suburbia. Now let me explain. So picture that classic American dream style suburban town, white picket fences, clean, polished streets, uniform houses, sort of like towns that look like they have like a neighborhood watch. There was a really good map in Hitman 2 called Whittleton Creek, and that kind of encompasses the vibe I want here, sort of like autumnal. It's going to be mostly applying to the trees and the foliage and stuff, but I do like the general clean vibe of it as well. And then the sense that will give within the context of my own map then will be that it's been renovated and made livable by these inhabitants. I want it to feel kind of like new and lived in. And then the third and final theme, very different again, industrial estates. So kind of like warehouses, like a construction site, loading zones, rough, gritty, sheet metal buildings. I have no specific visual reference to pinpoint this to for now, but I'm sure you know what I mean. So this place, the setting, is an old industrial estate that's been taken over, fortified, and then partially renovated by these new inhabitants. And these three styles will sort of serve as the templates for all the areas of the map then. And as I said, my aim is to have them bleed in and out of each other rather than sort of feel disjointed and random. But maybe I think the map might be a bit too small to achieve that, but I'll find that out as I work on it. That is the beauty of it. A friend of mine who I've worked with before, he's a musician. He's composed a couple tracks for the main menu and the gameplay. You're hearing it right now in the background. He delved into kind of Egyptian instruments and looked at sort of existing compositions for Egyptian-themed games, and then he came up with a few quick tracks then. I also made sure that each track was a variation on the same sort of core theme, with each one having varying degrees of intensity and atmosphere. For this, he just replaced certain instruments and toned down or removed other ones. I feel like the tracks I currently have are a solid basis for this game. I'm hoping to have it feel like a single level of a bigger game, even though it's just the one. In the coming video diaries, I will be documenting gameplay changes, art additions, models, new ideas, and I'm going to be showing off some of the blueprints within the engine itself. I'll talk about my thoughts behind my setups, things that worked, things that didn't work, how I'm adapting every step of the way, kind of the same old. I'll also be collecting other people's videos that I've used that have helped me build this game, and I'll be compiling those into a playlist, which will be found on my channel homepage. So it should be an exciting few weeks. I'm not really sure yet when the deadline is for this project, but I do think it's within the next month or so. So the university drama I mentioned before has been quite a big factor in me not knowing the deadline, but I won't go into that. So subscribe, comment, give me your thoughts. If you're one of the assessors assessing my project and you're watching this video, be sure to drop me a like and comment the word avocado if you made it this far. No, don't do that, I'm joking actually, sort of. I'll have the next video up in the next day or two, so stay tuned. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Also, again, please check out my Instagram unless you are there now. It is linked below. I'll be posting individual art pieces and hopefully some other stuff there as well that won't be in these videos. And yeah, that kind of summarizes the initial idea for this. So yeah, exciting stuff. Take care for now. Bye.